Advisory Commission meeting. Let's start with calling this meeting to order, but let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner McFadden, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
This states from that. And to the republic, which stands in the nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. Would you please roll call, please?
Here, man. Here.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner McFadden. Here. Commissioner Ullman.
Present.
Chair Zay. Viola.
Here.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Present.
Commissioner Anderson. Chair, you have a form.
Thank you. Next slide, please.
All right, I hope everyone had a chance to review the meeting minutes from July. If so, I need a motion and a second to approve them.
Motion to approve.
Vice. Commissioner and seconds. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Zato.
Approved.
Vice Chair Viola.
Approved.
Commissioner Crooks.
Approved.
Commissioner Palmero.
Question. My name is not under the commissioners and it's not under the absent commissioners, so I didn't know for the, of this document, if it would be on there since I did attend the meeting.
We will fix that.
Yes.
Should we make a motion to do the edit? I'll motion to include the commissioner.
Sure, seconds.
Chair Zato.
Approved.
Vice Chair Noyola.
Approved.
Commissioner Crooks.
Am I approving the change?
The edit.
Yes, approved.
Commissioner Palmero.
Yes, I approve.
Commissioner McFadden.
Approved.
Commissioner Ullman.
Approved.
And Commissioner Gutierrez.
Approved.
Okay, thank you. We'll make sure the edits are made and the minutes are approved. Next slide, please. Okay, chairman report, gov delivery went out on the 11th to, from AM-based subscription to lacounty.gov email. If anyone in the public needs to subscribe, please email info@fba.lacounty.gov. We've got a handful of more subscribers for the YouTube channel. Hopefully one day we'll get to 100. And I want to highlight again the need for all the commissioners. If you don't have access to your county email, let us know. Starting next meeting, we're going to only send out through that. For county commissioners, we need to be using the county emails. Also along that, there is a training that Stephanie wants us to highlight. It's a EEO and Equal Employment and Opportunity Training. It is on Thursday, September 13th. It's virtual, but it's several hours. So if possible, let's make sure we don't take it on the 13th. Else, I'm sure Stephanie will send out more information, but it's Thursday, September 13th, EEO training. There's several trainings that are on the site, but not all of them. Sorry, this is one of them. And also, we'll bring this up a little bit more later, but also Commissioner McFadden, we discussed trying to get regular time for the commissioners with their supervisors or their deputies. So that's all I have for chairman report. Is Ms. Willis online yet?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And we'll push the slides forward for you. Appreciate you being here. And we've got 10 minutes, ma'am.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm Maggie Willis. I'm the new director for CBEST, which is the Community Benefits Entitlement Services team that is operated out of the Department of Health Services Housing for Health Division. Stephanie, do you have the slide deck or should I share my screen?
You can share your screen.
Okay, great. Okay, are you all able to see the slide deck?
Not yet. Give us a minute, please.
Oh, it's telling me I can't share because only organizers and presenters can share. So I don't know if you need to elevate me, Stephanie, to a presenter.
I believe they're in the process of working on it. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Good to go, ma'am.
Good to go? All right, let's try it again. I'm still getting an error message that I can't present. Ah, here we go. Now it's giving me a pop-up. Here we go. Great. Can you all see that? I see it on the screen. Wonderful. All right. Thank you again for the invitation to join your meeting. I'm Maggie Willis, the director for CBEST. So before I jump into all of the stats and information that you requested in the numbers, I'd like to talk a little bit about what CBEST is. For those of you that are not familiar, CBEST is the countywide benefits entitlement services team. We are a program of the Department of Health Services Housing for Health Division, and we assist people countywide in applying for and securing income through public benefits, SSI, SSDI, their retirement benefits, as well as veterans benefits and CAPI. So CBEST uses a mix of county teams as well as a array of contracted service providers to provide wraparound services for people seeking benefits. So we do intakes with individuals to determine if they are a good fit for the benefit programs. And then if they are, we will move them through a process where our medical review team will pull medical records for both county services and for private medical services. They will gather all of the medical records that they can. They will review that. So we have doctors and nurses who will review those medical records, develop a summary, and do an assessment of people's disability. At the same time, we are working with Social Security to pull work history records so that we can put those together. And if folks are shown to have enough medical documentation to justify a disability, we will move that towards an application. And so then our application team takes over. They will take all of that information, work with the client, draft the application, and we will submit it on their behalf. Once that application is in, we'll do follow-up with Social Security or DPSS, depending on which benefits, or the VA. And then we will work on any appeals. If that application is denied, we will then work with the client. We will connect them to our legal services providers, and they will get full service representation throughout that appeals and hearing process. So we will work with the client from the start to the final determination. We also provide support services. So if people are experiencing homelessness, we do work with our contracted agencies in each SPA to connect those people to interim housing, to permanent supportive housing, and to other support services. So CBEST serves a variety of populations. The main criteria to be eligible for CBEST care is to be an LA County resident. Most benefits programs also have an income cap, so we will assess for that. And then, of course, a disability that prevents that person from working, or they may meet other disability benefit criteria, such as being over the age of 65 or blind. Our client population includes housed people as well as unhoused people, people who are experiencing homelessness, people who are at risk. Our veterans population, we also work closely with our reentry population, and we have a partnership with DCFS to work with youth who are exiting the foster care system. So CBEST will support folks that are interested in SSI, SSDI, survivor benefits, retirement benefits, cash assistance for immigrants, the CAFI program, veterans benefits, as well as benefits reinstatement for people that are leaving incarceration. Anybody can refer into CBEST. So if you have people that you think would be interested in receiving CBEST services, you can email us at cbestreferral@dhs.lacounty.gov. We'd be happy to email you out a referral form. We're working on our website in order to put this information up on the internet, so it's accessible. But for now, you can email us. You can refer people to a service provider in the county, and they usually know who we are and will get a referral into us. Now, I know this commission was very interested in hearing about the C5 work, that is the work around establishing a countywide veterans benefits advocacy program. It gets a little murky here, and this is where I will say, early on, as the homeless initiatives were being developed, a decision was made to mush together the initiatives 4, 5, and 6. So establishing a countywide SSI program, establishing a countywide veterans benefits advocacy program, and doing targeted advocacy for inmates all became kind of one initiative and funneled through CBEST. So we are doing all of this work holistically as one program. Because of that, the funding gets a little murky. I know that this commission was asking specifically about how much money was allocated to C5, and it is not something that we can sort of pull out because it is, again, a portion of a larger allocation that is used specifically to benefit the veterans community. So veterans are served through CBEST as a subpopulation that we specifically work with. This is our Measure H funding in total per year, along with the total CBEST budget. So you can see that the Measure H funds are a smaller percentage of the funding that we use to do this work. Don't panic when you see that there are extremely diminished allocations for last year and this year. That is because we used state HDAP funding in order to reallocate Measure H funds to other programs. We are using one-time state funding in order to keep this work going. Now that one-time funding is going to end at this end of this fiscal year, so we will be seeking additional funding from the county to keep CBEST afloat in 2024. What do we use this money for? It's a great deal of money, and we have a great deal of staff because there's a great deal of need. So CBEST is comprised of 120 full-time staff that does outreach and intake, provides connections to support services, helps people with their applications, actually drafts the application and submits them as their authorized representative to Social Security, and files the reconsiderations. We also have legal and social service contractors. So we have 4 legal aid contractors that we work with specifically to provide technical assistance and support to CBEST staff to help us navigate tricky situations. We have a new partnership with the Office of Immigrant Affairs that is working with CHIRLA to do immigration support. So for migrants, we are able to refer them to CHIRLA. They are able to work with them to verify their immigration status and help us determine if they're eligible for any benefits. And they're also able to help those migrants secure the necessary documents to verify their immigration status. We also work directly with Intercity Law Center for veterans work. So Intercity Law Center has a separate agreement just to do the veterans benefits, to do the discharge upgrade work, and to do appeals and hearings for veterans. We also contract with 8 social service agencies to cover all of the spas. And those agencies provide intensive case management, connection to housing and services, and will assist people who need their vital documents in order to get their applications done. We also have a records retrieval team. So we have 11 full-time staff who are doing the they're getting the consents from the participants to release medical records. They're faxing those because it's very old school still with the medical providers. We are faxing paperwork around the county, getting those medical records back. They are following up, chasing down those providers till we get a full view of people's medical records. Then we have a medical review team. So there's 15 additional full-time staff. These are nurses and physicians and clinical psychiatrists who will review those medical records. They will help make determinations about physical and behavioral health disabilities, and then they will determine if people have a strong case for benefits. How have we been doing? What is all of those resources accomplished? So since the origination of CBEST back in 2017, we have served 33,000 people, 1,500 of whom were veterans, identified as veterans. So that's about 5%, which is sort of commiserate with the veterans population overall and the general population, as well as the percent of the homeless population. We have submitted 720 applications for veterans over the years for a variety of benefits. Now, these could be multiple applications for the same person because some folks apply for multiple types of veterans benefits as well as SSI to supplement those veterans benefits. Of those 720, 347 were approved in their final determination, and only 22 were denied at final determination. So we have a very high approval rate when it comes to veterans overall. 94% of our final determinations are positive and people receive their benefits. Overall with CBEST, 89% of our program, of our final determinations are positive and people receive benefits. So CBEST results are real income for people. I think it's really important when you look at the cost of benefits advocacy services. This is the reason that is important and why these programs are important to this community. We are taking local dollars for the most part, and we are translating that into federal dollars going into people's pockets on a monthly basis. So for veterans who are applying for SSI or SSDI, they're receiving an average of $1,000 a month. That is ongoing money in their pockets. Retro pay, we were able to secure over $1 million on their behalf in retro payments. For veterans and the VA, that average is higher. Those veterans are receiving an average of $2,000 a month with a retro pay of almost $5 million secured on their behalf. Overall for CBEST, the average monthly income is now $906 per applicant with a retro pay of almost $25 million that we've been able to secure over the years. The work we've done since 2017 is resulting in over $40 million annually going into people's pockets every month on a monthly basis. This is an important number to remember. If we're spending, 30 million in staffing and resources, we are still generating a significant return on that investment that is going into people's pockets. This is important when we're talking about not only people who are experiencing homelessness, but people who are at high risk and who are struggling to meet their pay their rent, cover medical costs, pay for food. This money can be the difference between those people becoming homeless or being able to stay in their homes. So that is my very short presentation. Again, I'm Margaret Willis. You can call me Maggie. I'm the new director for CBEST. I have been in this position now for 4 months, so please don't ask me any hard questions. But I am happy at this time to take any questions that you all might have.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. Commissioners, are there any questions?
I happen to have a couple of questions.
Commissioner Belmer.
Can you hear me? Is that good? So first of all, thank you so much for an incredible detailed presentation. I would have never known you've only been doing this 4 months. Well done. There are a couple of questions. You mentioned veterans benefits. And so we talked about, I saw SSI, SSDI. I didn't know if any other benefits, such as getting them connected with someone who can help them advocate for their service connection, or even just like their medical stuff with the VA. Are you able to have, can you give a little bit more detail about what those veteran benefits entail?
Sure. So we have an agreement with Inner City Law Center to do all of that work. So I know a lot of that work is also happening through the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, which I do have to give you guys a shout out because you were critical in launching CBEST back in 2017. There was a great deal of training that happened that DMVA did for not only CBEST staff, but for the providers that we brought on to do this work. So thank you for that. Your partnership has been critical to the success of this program. But the Inner City Law Center has a very broad scope. So they will assist veterans with advocating for any kind of VA related benefits, whether that's getting them qualified for healthcare, whether that is income generating type of benefits, whether that is qualifying for veteran housing programs. They will do that work as needed. Right now, there is a tragically long wait list for those services because there is such a need, but they are diligently working through that wait list and trying to get to as many veterans as they can. One of the challenges we're seeing is that as the price of services kind of goes up, they're fighting to keep staff and have competitive wages, just like all of us. The amount of resources we've been able to give has not increased and kept pace. So we are able to do, we've given them a little more money this year. We were able to get DPSS to increase our allocation. So they have received an increase this year, which should help. But we are still not able to meet the demand for every veteran that is hoping to get that service. But they will do full scope benefits.
Thank you very much.
Chair, I have a couple of follow-ups.
Commissioner Allman.
Hi, Maggie. This is Commissioner Allman. I had requested this briefing several months ago, just shortly after we received a briefing from LASA. And at the time, we were told that veterans homelessness was going down. And while I think that the numbers reflect that for the continuum of care, that's not true for LA County. And so when I looked at the LA County Homeless Initiative's draft budget, to sort of follow the money, there is for the fiscal year 23-24, there's a decrease in the CBEST strategies 4, 5, and 6 of $480,000, right? So at one hand, we're told veterans homelessness is going down, and then we see that there is a decrease in funding for VA benefits assistance. And I thought that that was something that we needed to address. For example.
Yes.
Mhm. And
Oh,
so.
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, and so the point that I was going to make, and I think that the department has done well with the emergency powers given to them by the Board of Supervisors, but $480,000 is a lot of money for this department, given its just budget size. And so, my concern was, whether or not as a commission, we should look at those numbers and be concerned as well. My understanding is that this department, MVA, has not received any Measure H dollars. Director, is that correct?
Correct.
I mean, that's a tragedy. Right? I mean, and so again, I'm putting on my commissioner hat and saying there's a lot of money that is being dispersed throughout the county apparatus, and not a dollar has gone to this department. And, we should be aware of that, and we should, advocate that this department sees something. If strategies 4, 5, and 6 are seeing a reduction in $480,000, maybe this department can see a portion of that. Or, and Maggie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Measure H dollars for CBEST, for those strategies, do they go to DMH or do they go to DHS?
So they go to actually DPSS. So this is the windy road of CBEST. That money, there's several pots of money allocated for benefits advocacy services. There's a large pot that goes to Department of Public Social Services. Technically, we are contracted with them. They contract with Housing for Health, Department of Health Services in order to do the CBEST program. So the money goes to them. We have an agreement with them that combines several funding sources in order to generate that overall budget for CBEST that you saw earlier. I will also say that those reductions in Measure H funding were intentional because we received the state funding through DHCS to do the HDAP program. We were able to reallocate Measure H money. So even though the Measure H allocation went down, the overall budget for CBEST remained intact. And so we have been able to maintain those services to the veteran community.
So sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. The explanation is additional state dollars came online, and that's what offset the reduction of Measure H funding.
That's correct.
Okay, I mean, that's helpful, but again, from my commissioner, standpoint, I still think that there's a problem that this department, and I know that's not your fault, I'm just making an observation that, the department that specializes in veterans benefits assistance has not been a part of Measure H, and instead the county is contracting out services to a service provider that has virtually, maybe 80% of the same work. I'm making up a percentage. I mean, I think the one thing that Intercity Law Center can do that this department can't do yet is really looking at discharge upgrades, because that is, a very lengthy process. But if it's just applying for VA benefits, I mean, that's why this county department exists. Why are we contracting out for that? So anyhow, I just wanted to make that observation to the other commissioners, that I think that there could just be a little bit more equity in the allocation of measures.
Concur. Chairman Zeno, could I address?
Yeah, we've got another comment from Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, I'd have to say, I think you'd probably find that the commissioners concur with Commissioner Allman as well as, and it is a good briefing and a good traffic direction happening. Veterans, SSI, and we have veterans, and this is in the discharge upgrade issue, who don't get VA veteran benefits. So my technical question is, are they eligible within the SSI, DI file?
Yeah, absolutely. We will work with, coordinate on veterans benefits. And if people are eligible for both, we will enroll them in both. And if they're not eligible for one, but eligible for the other, we will absolutely go forward with that. Not being eligible for one does not preclude you from being supported by CBEST. I will also say that we are very, very happy at Housing for Health to work with DMVA on restructuring if that is something we need to explore in order to reduce duplication of services. We will join you in whatever advocacy you take up with the county on that.
Thank you. We've got another question from Commissioner McFadden.
Hi, Commissioner McFadden, really quick. So I worked at ICLC in the Veterans Center. So I have a quick question for you. With regards to the candidates that are being chosen, usually there was an interview process. Like we had to go through and identify which candidates we could help the most, which is what caused such a backlog because there's only a certain amount of people that can be supported at any given time. Is this the case that individuals are coming to you for services, which you said most likely discharge upgrades, and we're doing secondary causes, which is a wonderful thing that ICLC can support. But is that primarily what's happening there, or are you saying they're all encompassing now? This was a while ago that I worked there, so I'm just trying to understand if their process has changed.
No, my understanding is they are still screening folks for eligibility. And that they are still, looking for the folks that are sort of the highest need, most likely to secure benefits. So there are folks that maybe have a case, but are maybe not as high a priority that are on that wait list.
And then for any of those excess, then those individuals can be routed here for services and for help. So it's not like they're in a queue to be waiting. They are being forwarded or guided to other supportive services that exist. Is that correct?
That's correct. They will be offered other options while they're waiting.
Good.
Commissioner Allman.
Can I just expand on Commissioner McFadden's thought? So, just in terms of the allocation of resources, would it make more sense if veterans were brought to MVA first for that assessment and then determined, if, for example, specialty legal services were needed, then bring in ICLC? I mean, I'm sure that there is need for those services, but I guess I'd be curious if looking at the ICLC docket, how much of that is actual intensive legal services versus just pretty straightforward benefits processing.
So it's definitely something we can unpack together, I think, in continued conversations to better coordinate services. I think in speaking to ICLC staff, what they were saying, and again, I've been here 4 months, so this is not a process I fully understand, but that because that it's not the discharge upgrade with DOD, but it's a benefits discharge status advocacy that happens within the VA, happens as they're going through the benefits process. So the benefits advocacy is not limited to submitting the application or doing a hearing. Because it incorporates that legal piece of working on the discharge status. It's a little bit muddy in terms of what's quote unquote legal services and what's quote unquote benefit services.
And I don't think we're gonna solve this right here. I was just making the observation that in terms of, perhaps looking at next year's budget and restructuring where MBA in that, spectrum of services so that MBA can be resource appropriate, as well as ICLC, right? It's not saying cut ICLC out of the picture and just,
Mhm.
bring them they are needed so that it's the most efficient, use of resources. Because Measure H is limited, right? I mean, tax dollars are precious. Where do they make most sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, usually I don't jump in, but I just wanted to jump in and ahead of the director report and just say Maggie and her team and I had a conversation earlier this week, fresh off the press pretty much, around kind of how do we unpack, as Maggie said. So the conversation's already been happening, which I really appreciate, Maggie. A lot of the points that are being made, we are having initial conversations, but you guys are all making great points that I appreciate.
Any other questions?
Vice.
Thank you, Maggie, Al Nolan. Thank you so much for your presentation, very enlightening. And it does obviously bring up the question of how best to centralize the delivery of different benefits across the spectrum. The county already has certain delivery lines that are housed in other departments. But if we're really focused on a specific population base that has benefits that are provided at that level, you may still be able to deliver those in other departments, but there seems to be a lack of overall oversight to ensure that someone can come into the system and be directed to the proper place, and also manage the overall dollars that are allocated by federal, state agencies that directly impact veteran services. It seems to me that the county, in their wise wisdom, created a department called Veteran Affairs. And yet many of the veteran services are not being overseen by this department, but they're housed in different agencies. So the question becomes, what's out there? How efficient is that? And this department, whose overall mission is about overseeing and identifying all those benefits and how best to deliver them, may not have all the information because it is housed in other departments. And I'm pleased to hear that already there's some discussions that are happening, and I would encourage them to continue on. And we should not stop just with you, but really you, countywide, what services are out there and how best do we have some oversight, if you will, when it comes to all types of benefits, not just medical, not just SSI, whatever that is, but all of it, homeless issues and whatnot. And my understanding is there may be some dollars specifically allocated to the veteran community. Where are those dollars? And if this department can't answer that, the Department of Veteran Affairs, it seems like we're already having a disconnect. So I would encourage the department and yourself and others to start having those conversations and how best can we bring all of that together under one umbrella, not necessarily for the actual delivery, but certainly for the oversight, because I think that's going to be very important. Director.
Yeah, I just want to respond to that. I think that's a great comment. And I can't tell you every veteran service that exists in the county. There has been some work with a board motion to convene all the county departments that assist individuals experiencing homelessness, which include veterans. And so we did that as a department. Then we met with VA as part of that to see how we can collaborate. But that's just on the veterans experiencing homelessness. This commission, the first recommendation that came from this commission last year was around discounts to parks and beaches. And so I did do some collaborating or some conversations with Parks and Rec and Beaches and Park and Natural History Museum, shared some of that information, but undoubtedly there's more services that are out there that might continue.
Thank you, Director. And to that point, I want to mention, as an example, homeless missions. The VA does have certain benefits, and if those that we're trying to help, if they don't self-identify, we have some of the means of identifying who those are, then the benefits could be coming from directly from the VA versus some other source that maybe could help somebody else that doesn't qualify for VA benefits. So I think that's very important, and I want all continue to look into this. And, you know, and I do think that this department needs to really step up in the oversight arena and start bringing all of those together. And perhaps, you know, this commission, you know, may take up that idea to say, hey, you know, well, how can we help you to ensure that we, you know, that we get that out there, that the oversight really needs to come from this department. That's what the Board of Supervisors created this department in the first place for. It's my view, not necessarily to provide all the benefits, but at least the oversight, you know, the gatekeeper.
Any other questions for Maggie? Thank you for your time, Ms. Wills. We appreciate the briefing. We'll, I'm sure we'll still be in touch. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Can we bring back up the slides? Perfect. So just for the knowledge of the rest of the commission, because this recommendation involved legislation, there was a meeting with legislative affairs. So I'm going to let the vice and Commissioner Allman give us a little bit of a context before we discuss this recommendation. Let's go.
So, Commissioner Allman, for the record, according to our bylaws, the process by which a commissioner can introduce a recommendation, he or she will draft the recommendation and then submit that to the leadership, which includes the chair, the vice, and the secretary, at least 2 weeks prior to the upcoming meeting. So that's the window. And when I drafted this, it was really in response to the briefing that we received from Legislative Affairs at the last meeting that AB 46 did not yet receive county support. And I thought, well, in this role, we have the ability to advise and recommend to the Board of Supervisors pieces of legislation that we think are crucial to the benefit of the military veteran community. And AB 46 seems like a no-brainer. But when we introduced, or when I submitted the recommendation to the leadership, the chair flagged that this recommendation is specific to a piece of legislation, that there is a review process for that outlined by Commission Services. So at a follow-up call with Vice and Legislative Affairs to discuss what that process looked like. And truthfully, it's not used frequently by commissions. The last time I believe Legislative Affairs was to review recommendation of 2019. So it doesn't happen very often. They were willing to take a look at the draft recommendation, but I felt it was appropriate to hold it and for us to discuss it as a commission first, because you all might have amendments to this draft that could may or may not impact the analysis from Legislative Affairs. So, for example, you know, this draft recommendation asks the Board of Supervisors to direct Legislative Affairs to take a policy position in support of AB 46, but somebody could offer that says, you know, not only should it do that, but it should give every veteran. I mean, you know, you're free to offer amendments to this draft. And when it goes to Legislative Affairs, it should be all encompassing of our edits so that Legislative Affairs can give it a full analysis. And at that point, we can all review that analysis and then determine whether or not it's appropriate to send to the Board of Supervisors. So that's not specific to this recommendation. I was sort of talking about process because we're in a period of sort of rebuilding this commission. I think we should take a look at our bylaws and maybe make another amendment to establish a process that if a draft recommendation does discuss a piece of legislation, that it gets voted on here first before going to legislative affairs for review. That's not a requirement, but I think it should be part of our operating procedure. So as far as process, I mean, is everyone comfortable with that?
Okay. I just think that that's a good way to put everything in order and not to, put the cart before the horse. That's orderly, it includes us all. We have that responsibility to whoever it is that we're representing to know what's going on. So I think that that's feasible.
Yeah, I think it's fair, right? And you might have a recommendation that I haven't added on that might substantially change the nature of the analysis. And so I think just in terms of approaching it in an orderly way. The other issue, at least here, is that the state legislative calendar doesn't exactly line up here. So whatever action we take, the Board of Supervisors will not be meeting again until September, which is after the state legislative calendar. So there was no pressure to expedite this. But moving forward, again, I just think it's important to establish good procedure so that the next group of commissioners understands, what the rules of the road are. So outside of process and procedure, I think, the idea for the discussion today would be, for example, a motion to refer this out to legislative affairs for review. It's not a vote on recommending that this goes to the Board of Supervisors yet. At the next meeting, hopefully we'll have the report back. I believe Legislative Affairs calls it a memo of finding. That is their analysis of it, in which we can all review that in advance. I believe I asked them how long that would take, and they said 30 days was more than enough time. So the idea is that today we vote on it to go to Legislative Affairs, and then we table the actual vote on the recommendation itself for the September meeting. So, and basically any time we take a position on the legislative matter, it's going to take 2 meetings instead of 1 meeting.
Yes, and one of the things that came out of that meeting, specifically as it relates to this particular piece of legislation as to why they had not taken a position, is because of the statewide impact financially that this might have. And so let's just say that given the deficit that supposedly is going to be happening, that kind of put everybody a little bit more cautious about what they would be willing to support or not. And I do believe it was somewhere around $40 or $50 million hit to the general fund. And I can't recall if that was statewide or if it was here. It was statewide. Okay. And so, and certainly that's part of the finding that would come. In any of these, but one of the other things too, that, as we had this meeting and I started writing some notes down was, we obviously know when they meet, we obviously know what some of the bills are that are going to be coming through, and any bill that comes through, regardless of whether the county, Board of Supervisors takes a stance even before we get to review that, we should be aware of what those bills are so that we can either join the county Board of Supervisors or make those recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, going forward. Instead of the way we kind of found out that it's like, well, they're not taking a stance, and it's like, what do you mean? You're talking to us and you didn't take a stand, and the process. And I think it would be beneficial for us to continue, put that in writing, and make that part of our responsibility or director to let us know what's out there, what's coming down the pike. I'm sure that probably there's been some sort of a briefing from the CEO's office about what's happening on the legislative front. And so anything related to veteran issues, we should get some sort of notification.
Just to add, the notes that I took from that meeting was anticipated $50 million impact on the budget in 23-24 and 85 million starting in 24-25. I don't know why it's different. I assume, maybe people learn about the benefit over time.
Yeah.
But those are statewide figures. There is no understanding of how that would impact the county. That's what I heard. And what I've also, and I'm not absolutely positive, is that California is the only state that taxes, that's true, correct? It is. And it's the only state in the union that taxes Department of Defense retired. And, yeah, that's absurd. You know, so all the more reason why I say, I think commissioners, we should support this recommendation and ask that the board of supervisors take a positive advocacy position. But before we can do that, we need to go through the protocol, which is getting a memo of findings from the Legislative Affairs Office.
Has everyone had a chance to read the recommendation? Is there any other discussion to be held regarding? I know this is obviously not going to the supervisor yet, but is there any discussion to be had regarding sending this to Legislative Affairs?
Just one other piece of process. Once the findings are found, if you do move forward with a recommendation, those need to be attached to your recommendation. Just a little more clarification.
Commissioner Garcia.
So, Director, to your point, I think we should, at the next meeting, also consider revision to the bylaws that describes this process.
Any other discussion? Do we have a motion to send to Legislative Affairs?
I will. I motion that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I second that.
All right. Too slow.
Is it more official? I had the
All right, we'll discuss with the director and Stephanie the exact processes, and we'll put to we'll look at amendments at the next meeting to clarify this situation in our bylaws.
There is a motion and second. Are we going to vote?
Yes, we need to vote. Can we do a roll call, please?
Chair Zato,
Approve.
Vice Chair Noyola,
Approved.
Commissioner Crooks,
Approved.
Commissioner Palmero,
Approved.
Commissioner McFadden,
Approved.
Commissioner Ullman,
Approved.
and Commissioner Gutierrez.
Approved.
Thank you, everyone.
Commissioner Anderson also approves.
Oh, that's it. Everyone was like,
Say for the record.
Approved.
Krishan, please keep the microphone as we're going to discuss the logo. Next, do we have his actual presentation? So that's the slide where we have the, along with his presentation he sent in.
So for background, at the last meeting, I discussed, potentially us looking into developing our own identity. Because for the past couple of years that I've been on the commission, we've been using the department's logo. And I developed a little brief presentation just to describe where we fall in the county apparatus. And we are outside of this department. While we receive logistical assistance from the department, we actually belong to a separate entity. Okay, so just in terms of getting situational awareness on the county. So logo number 1 is the seal of the County of Los Angeles. And as I'm sure many of you know, the county has different apparatuses. So for example, there's the Board of Supervisors, which is elected by the people in LA County. We have the assessor's office, the assessor elected by the people, the voters of Los Angeles County. Same thing with the district attorney and the sheriff, right? So if you were to look at the charter, these four entities are all voted by the people of LA County. So if we go to the next slide. I think we skipped one. Okay, so this is an org chart for the County of Los Angeles. It's the most recent that I could find, and maybe that there are some others, but I just wanted to show sort of where those entities in the previous slide fall. So if you look at, for example, the orange circle, that's the Board of Supervisors, and on an equal plane is the assessor, district attorney, and the sheriff. And those are all required by the county charter. But if you look down, you have the CEO, which reports to the Board of Supervisors. And then from there, you have all the county departments. So circled in red is the County Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. So you can see here that MVA reports to the CEO. If you look off to the right, we have the two green circles. So that's the executive office. And underneath the executive office are county commissions. So if we go to the next slide, this is a visual representation of what that looks like, right? So the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs reports to the county CEO, which reports to the Board of Supervisors. Here, this is the logo on the right for the Civilian Oversight Commission, which is the commission that oversees the Sheriff's Department. And I believe they report to the executive office on behalf of commission services and then to the Board of Supervisors. So for us military folks, two different chains of command, right? So we have a different and distinct identity versus the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the purpose of our commission. So what I wanted to do is sort of introduce concepts, not to say that, that these are final, these are for discussion. We'll go to the next slide. Of what our logo could look like. And I asked a friend of mine who is a military family member. Her father was a retired sergeant major in the Marine Corps. And so she grew up in a military household, understands the importance of the unit patches and logos. And so I just gave some broad guidance. I really wanted to incorporate the county seal because I think it gives an understanding that this is an official part of county government. And essentially what I did is I went back and I looked at what the assessor and the district attorney did with their logo in terms of creating that outer ring. And the outer ring describes sort of the entity. So in option one, it's just the county seal with Board of Supervisors on the top rocker, Veterans Advisory Commission on the bottom rocker, and nothing in between. On logo two, essentially it's the same thing, 2 and 3, except we added, I think, I was talking to one of the commissioners about some flair, right? So if you notice, there's 6 stars in the logo, 3 in the left, 3 in the right, that kind of fills in the space from logo 1, where there's a void. 2 and 3 are the exact same thing, just different colors. And 4 was like a combination of that. And I really just took that from the county flag, right? The county flag being 2 different colors. And again, these are just conceptual, just something to think about. For example, somebody here might have an idea that, we should have, a tank as our logo. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But I also dropped this logo in red because I knew it'd be of importance to the Marine Corps veterans, but it was just too bold. It was just, I didn't include it. And so, why is this logo important? I think it's important for a variety of reasons. One, it establishes a unique sense of identity. But if we go to the next slide. On our notice of meetings, right, we're still using the department's basically brand identity. And I think moving forward, we should think about our notice of meetings going out with a unique identity. Again, setting us as a distinct part of the county sort of government structure. We're not the same as the department. So when the notice of meetings go out, the first thing that you should see is the commission logo, not the department logo. And again, there's nothing wrong with the department logo. It's just we have a different purpose. And so if we move to the next slide, this is sort of what it would look like. These are mock-ups in terms of the email, right? So these three are the same. It's just, it might be difficult to see up here. Maybe folks online can see it, but it's just the different color logos and what that would look like. And of course, I use the picture of Bob Pedro Hall. Just, that's pretty iconic, and that's where we meet. So why not advertise where we meet in our notice of meetings? The only thing I would add here, and this is just my opinion, and I'll let other people, take the floor. On the bottom, if the top is sky blue, on the bottom, I would make it green just to match the brand identity of the county flag. That's just my little small modification here. But if we can go back to the four different draft logos, and then maybe, if people want to share their thoughts or if they have a preference. And we don't have to take action on this at all. We could take action on that next meeting, or, if anyone has any other ideas, just opening the floor.
I love number 4.
Me too, I second that.
I think it has a good consistency, a good combination of everything. It's all encompassing. It looks good. I think the email sample page, having a green flag would be perfect. So that would be my thought. And kudos for this. This is awesome. It looks really, really, really reflective of the professionalism that we do.
So the one thing, it took a few weeks, months to font match what you see in the rocker with what's actually in the county seal. And thanks to the department for getting in touch with the comms team and getting the source files so that we could match what's actually used in the county seal. The only thing I want to bring up in 4 is you'll notice that the font for Board of Supervisors and Veterans Advisory Commission is smaller than the other ones. And it's like that because of the two-tone. So I love that you love this. I love all of them. My least favorite is 4 because I like how big Board of Supervisors and Veterans Advisory Commission.
But you're saying we can't expand the font to be, because of the two-tone, can I see it? But because of the two-tone, that means that the font is going to be smaller. We can't make it bigger.
We could take the stars out. Yeah. I mean, we could try it. Just see how it looks.
So I'm saying I say 4 stylistically with the font correct and the appropriate sizing. But I do like the blue and green combination and the stars there, but definitely I see the spacing, but.
And come back next meeting with those edits, so feel free to.
Commissioner Prince?
I'm gonna disagree.
Um,
I like one. You reach across all the different services, what's one thing they'll have in common? All of them have green somewhere. And the green is the one, and the green stands out. You look like every other county department, every other board with the blue. The green is definitely something that stands out and makes you unique. As an independent board, that's what you want. But just my opinion.
Any other discussion, thoughts? Well, we don't have to decide today. Yeah, I want to make it clear, we're not voting today. Let me make that clear. But I want to thank Commissioner Allman, for putting this together. Commissioner Gutierrez, did you have some comments?
Yeah, no, I was trying to go, I was going with four. Kind of like along the lines of what was being mentioned, it's kind of, represents both, right? So the board of supervisors are the blue, and then the veteran piece would be the green, and that would be us. So that's why, I mean, I like things being all even in one color. It's Marine Corps, right? So everything is one color. So two goes against everything that I believe in, but I get it. It represents both sides of it. And I wouldn't go green because the board of supervisors isn't the green part of it. We are. So.
Vice.
Thank you. At first I was going for number 2, only because it's blue and it's Air Force. But I think I could go with 4. It does bring in, the green camouflage BDUs back in the day. What I would ask is perhaps maybe if the commissioner could come back with a couple different variations of number 4 in terms of font size. And I will tell you, something that kind of really sticks out to me is on number 2 and number 3, there's 3 stars on either side. I really like that. And I realize that now, because of the split of the color, it's 1 star each. I don't know if you make the star larger or if you add 2 above, 2 below. That looks nice. So I would ask if you could please maybe bring something back at the next meeting to take that vision, because I think certainly looks like to me like we're all wanting to do this. It's just a matter of what. All right, so my vote would be number 1 blue and then after.
So the 4, it's difficult to do 3 and 3 because of the color transition. I'll state it for reference. I like number 1. That's my preference. And it's even having the 6 stars, 6 different service branches. Each star represents a branch. It's great. It's a little too busy and again, everyone's got a different interpretation. Given the seal already has some accents in there, it's just too much for me. But everyone, this is all public record. I'll share it with the designer and she can, respond with some additional concepts.
Commissioner Anderson? Yeah, I was just gonna say my comment on 4 is with the 2-tone, you kind of have the blue for the air and naval services, green for the ground forces. And, these are all subliminal suggestions, but they're all very clean designs.
Okay. Chair, do you?
No. I'm still analyzing this over. I'm going to table this since we do need to make time for public comment as well as to report. But I want to thank Commissioner Allman. I think we can all mull over this, take a second look over this next month, think about it. I do think this is important as we're trying to build a new identity for this commission. So I don't think this is wasted time at all, but we have other business to attend to. So let's all take the next month and kind of take another look at this and continue to share thoughts. Thank you. Next slide, please. Is Mr. Hall online?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair.
Thanks for being here, Mr. Hall. Once you start speaking, you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Dan Hall. I am a United States Army veteran residing in Supervisorial District 3. I'm speaking in support of recommendation number 3 for Assembly Bill 46, the Military Services Retirement and Surviving Spouse Benefit Payment Act. So when I was getting out of the Army, and to this day, I heard, as I'm sure many of you have, and continue to hear veterans speak about this perception of how unfriendly California is to vets due to our robust tax system. The bill's analysis itself notes that from 2010 to 2021, the veteran retiree population grew by 17% across the nation. California was one of only 5 states to see a decrease in military retirees at a rate of 14% reduction in the same period. I think it's also important to put in the public record at this commission that the bill's analysis states that the majority of retirees who will benefit from AB 46 are enlisted, and I think that's really great. By supporting this bill, you will add your name as only the second county veterans commission who has officially taken a position of support in the state. And if the Board of Supervisors takes this issue up, LA County will be the second county to officially support. So I really think this is a huge step in building critical support for the bill as it sits in the Senate Appropriations suspense file. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Next we have Mr. Morales. Thank you for being here, sir. We're gonna get you a new microphone, and once you start speaking, sir, you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes. Try to be as brief and as succinct as I can be. The purpose of my being here today is I missed the earlier part. Wednesdays is my day to volunteer for the food bank in the west side where we do our organic gardens, so Vets Gardens. So we have organic produce. So I brought a whole bunch of it with me to give to my friend Jim. And by the way, I want to, just before I start, comment on the fact that it's going to be 10 months this month that this young man who's been leading this department has now been here. And we haven't had a chance to get together other than briefly different times, except for the first time that we met. And I'm very proud of what he's doing. And I think that the future bodes well for this department. Now, the purpose of my meeting here is to confirm that you approved the minutes of the last meeting at which I requested and notified you that we were seeking national landmark status for Patriotic Hall. If that has occurred and if the minutes were approved where we submitted that, then I need to have an official copy of those minutes because it is my intention on behalf of the American Legion, Los Angeles Post number 8, and I took the liberty of notifying our national of what we were intending to do along with our current commander of our post, to bring it to the attention of our elected officials at a formal Board of Supervisors meeting on a Tuesday between now and the end of the month of October, prior to the month of November. So sometime in the months of either next Tuesday, August, or September or October, we are going to be and request from Fisher Davenport to speak to the elected officials. You are surrounded here in this building by a history that is unmatched in all the rest of the United States. Let me remind you of one thing. We are not the most populated city in the United States. New York is. Chicago is not far behind LA. We are not the most, of the 58 counties in the state of California, we are not the largest. San Bernardino is. But yet, when you were talking about budgets and we're talking about buildings, what this building represents and has represented and is now the last remaining of its type left in the country is a function that you perform as commissioners. As I was listening to Maggie Willis speak about CBEST and watching those budgets, this county has the largest, 9th largest budget in the country out of 50 states. Is my time up?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to make a point to you. Do you know how you fund things and what you are totally forgetting when you complain about the fact that how come we only have $6 million for a budget? By the way, we played this game in the 1970s and 80s and change things. This commission. Stop and think where the money comes from that funds the county budgets. It comes from taxpayers who are property owners. When you confirm with CalVet and the GI and the Veterans Administration on GI loans and GI property owners that are veterans in this county, in the 1980s, it was 1 out of 6. 1 out of 6. And back then the budget was 14 billion. Today it's over $30 billion, 32 or 34, I believe. And yet the veterans of this community, which are entitled back in the 80s to 1/6 of that budget because that's what they paid into, were receiving less than $1 million a year. And right now you're receiving $6 million out of a $34 billion budget. You know what we can do with that on national public news like we did back in the 1970s and 80s? When you call attention to the fact that this county leads the nation in homeless veteran population, there are 17 million plus veterans left.
Sir. Sir, thank you.
So this building.
We can respond to, we can make sure that you have a copy of the minutes.
Yeah, I need to get a copy so we can make sure you get a copy. And we are going to make this public through advocacy, through the American Legion post that's going to headline this, because that's the reason this building is still here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That concludes the public comment period. Next is the director's report.
All right, thank you, NBA team, for putting this commission together. I know it's not an easy lift every month. I want to also thank Commission Services for being here in the crowd and observing and lending your AV expertise. And then also my colleague Maggie Willis for coming and talking about her program with DHS. So veteran homelessness and benefits. We saw about 303 veterans. Well, we saw 303 veterans last year who were homeless in our system, just for that piece. We also are aware of a study that the VA did where they looked at all the homeless veterans that are on the by name list, and that's approximately 1,800. And they took a look at who's service connected, who has pension, who's on Social Security, and we found that 50% of veterans that are currently on the by name list do not have any of those type of benefits. We did not study, are they receiving CAPI or any of the other DPSS county level benefits? So that's it. So when looking at what we can do as a department to have the greatest impact, that is where we're starting with homelessness. We're also taking a leadership stance and position with the VA to showing up 110% in the collective work on veteran homelessness. So that's a little bit of update on the homelessness side. Veteran suicide. So our department participated in the Suicide Review Academy that occurred in White Plains, 25th to the 27th of last month. 7 states and 1 county was represented. Okay. It was targeted for governor's challenge, but just because we were so far along compared to other counties and states, we provided to talk about the work that we did and learn from others. Very informative. I think the whole team, we have several county departments that are involved in it. Who was represented there? It's the Department of Health, Office of Medical Examiner, and then Department of Public Health. And so the connection with benefits, what we're trying to impact now is talking to crisis responders in the area. 80% of veteran crisis calls that they go to have some kind of financial nexus. So they either get a letter from the VA about the back debt that's owed, and pay their service connection until it's paid up. Some kind of related financial issue, and so making sure that we partner with the VA mental evaluation team and the sheriff's mental evaluation team to make sure that they have everything they need to get the minimum that they're providing service to the benefits and debt relief, advocacy, and other related services. There is one piece of legislation that I want to flag that's federal. The county has not taken a position on it, but it is called the not just a member act, where it would, proposed by Senator Tester from Montana, but this would, mandate the VA when doing their annual veteran suicide report, to include data around VBA, so benefits specific data. So you can understand why we're very interested as a department in, the development. CDSO Act, I believe it's an HR 984. It would allocate $20 million to states across the country, federal dollars to support CDSO work. And so that's another bill that our department's following very closely and trying to provide as much advocacy as possible around that. Staffing updates. So right now we're looking at a plan for September to really kick out some of our new staff out to field offices to make sure that we have better access to our services as a department. Just, observing new staff that are being trained on the second floor, really seeing a lot of demonstrated knowledge, confidence, and ability in a very quick period of time. Just watching them come into the department a few months ago and just seeing them interact with veterans, I think you'd be very proud of what's being done on the second floor. And just how much mentorship and leadership we're getting from our leaders in the department. We're focused on building a culture of mentorship and support. So Fridays we do shut down. It's a very painful decision on my end to shut down for half a day for admin. But really what we're trying to do there is make sure that we have to get these men and women ready to be prepared to provide benefits advocacy out in the field. Because the issue that our department has is if you're a patriotic call, you're surrounded by other benefit groups in one experience or at the same level that you can bounce things off of. When we send them out to different communities like Eagle Fair Library, a medical center or a med center, they're really on the road. So we got to make sure that they're as prepared as possible, especially the nuances around the PACT Act. We're also building out a volunteer program. He's got a background in software to really help us start looking at building out a volunteer program. The software really that we're looking at would really reduce the amount of time that our staff would have to put into calling and putting in schedules. It's all automated. You can go like schedules, things like that. But we're at the very beginning phase of that. The intent is to bring on a volunteer corps to really greet everybody. I think I've mentioned it to the commission in the past. One thing that we talked about recently is also making sure that they're trained up in the rich history that the veteran community has in LA, as well as this building, as Mr. Morales was talking about in this public comment. We want people when they come in to have somebody that can walk them around wherever they need to go, educate them on all the services that are in the building, as well as educate them on the rich history of the building and the veteran community here in LA. We recently, to the Quality and Productivity Commission to get funding for a study that we worked on with USC, looking at the California Association of County VSOs. There's really, we kind of, as counties, we give the same message. This is how much money we have, but we're not looking at the impact on veteran well-being and the family well-being as it relates to benefits establishment. And we're not really looking deep enough into the cost savings for the county. And so as we look to advocate at the state to increase the budget, which is currently at 11 million for the entire state, we're looking at how do we get information in the hands of decision makers at the state that would lead to that funding increase. We did about 5 county VSOs and I testified to the state Committee of Military and Veteran Affairs, and there is a willingness at the state to increase the budget once they're able to do so. The budget sometimes, but it's our job as an association and county VSOs to make sure that they have the data that shows that it's a great decision for the state to make further investment. As I mentioned, having good conversation with Maggie and her team, DHS, around kind of how there's a lot of redundancy between our two program. Really encouraged by that conversation and appreciate her leadership. Santa Clarita Arts and Veteran Center report. we're really kind of wrapping that up and getting it ready to give back to the board, for a board motion that was authored by Supervisor Barger and Supervisor Scalise a few months back. So really excited to turn that in. Focus of that is one-time funding recommendations for capital improvement, as well as recommendations for operating services necessary to support the veteran community with the Santa Cruz area. LA Trade Tech in November is going to start through a partnership with AJCC, JVS SoCal. We'll start the culinary arts program for 10 to 15 veterans, again, beginning in November. This was a priority of Supervisor Scalise, so we're really happy that we're able to execute on that and appreciate the partnership with AJCC. We're still looking for additional ideas around how to use that kitchen. It makes me very sad to go down there and see that they're using that kitchen, and then walking into the building and speaking to our colleagues at profits and PMH and seeing how operating. It's just, we got to figure something out. So we welcome all ideas from the commission. I know engaged with the commissioner so far about ideas. Would love to get your guys' ideas on that. Concierge desk is on hold currently until we build the volunteer program. We made that, I reported to this commission that August 1, and then rolling that out. We made a decision not to roll that out because it would take additional staff from the second floor down to the lobby. And they would have to check in the lobby, then they'd have to check in the second floor. And so until we're able to build out the volunteer program or create a meeting room situation, we're putting that in. So we started town halls a few months ago. Our first one was in SD4 in Whittier. Our second one was in the city of Lawndale. We had a pretty decent turnout in Lawndale. Our partners with VHA and VBA and Calvin were at both those meetings. We're going to continue those. We're going to rotate through your supervisorial districts every 5 to 6 months. So we're going to look to engage your communities biannually. Really appreciate your partnership and participating in that to get the word out into your communities. We've been also engaging with the board offices around leveraging their communication channels to get the word out as well. But the VA and CalMet both are really appreciative of the opportunity to engage with the communities of each supervisorial district. So town halls is a way to kind of engage the community. In the community, we have access and engagement with LA Veteran Collaborative, where we have close to 100 to 130 participants every month. We talk about barriers, so that's a way to work in collecting the feedback from service providers in the county to advocate to county, state, and federal partners. And then we have the One Team, which is a VA initiative that's bringing all homeless providers together and really attacking homelessness. And then we have the Veteran Community Oversight and Engagement Board, which is a federal advisory commission that a lot of the members here are on local in this community. And so if you haven't engaged with the Veteran Community Oversight and Engagement Board, recommend looking into that. That's a way you can voice your comments and opinions. And then October 11th, we're working with the VA right now to have a visit from Monica Diaz, who heads up the homeless program for the entire VA, as well as Dr. Matthew Miller, who heads up the suicide prevention program for the VA, as well as Dr. Keith Harris, for a site visit to really work with county leadership, different county departments and VA leadership on how we're collaborating and next steps, how we can amplify that. I'm hoping that it leads to opportunities to pilot initiatives, considering how much this county has invested in suicide prevention and the so just very encouraged by that. And that's it for my updates. I don't know if the commission has any questions for me.
Thank you, Director. Let's move forward to next. Is there a question for our Director? Let's make it quick. Commissioner Allman first, and then Commissioner Chair.
Very quick, has there been any updates with regard to revamping the website?
Yes, so currently we're looking for ways to move forward with the website. It is my desire to get the $43,000 in funding that we have in an account freed up to be able to use that funding to procure a website designer outside of the accounting system. We're still talking about that, but that's the direction that I'm trying to move. I just need to get approval to make that happen.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
I'll be brief. You mentioned the USC study. Is there a way we can get an update on where that's at, when we can expect it? I know we had a lot, it seemed like a lot of interest in it, but I haven't seen how many people responded or anything of that nature. If you could assist with that. Any updates on Vet Day LA, and what was the turnout like at the town hall, if you have that number? Those are my questions.
All right, so yeah, I think USC would be more than happy to come and provide an update to this commission. I just spoke to Dr. Carl Castro earlier this week about the other study, the Southern California study, which is LA's, Orange County and San Diego. They finished up their data collection and they're going to be working on this release schedule soon. That particular study, we brought in mental health, behavioral health directors from the county of San Diego, the county of Orange County, and LA County to be involved in the making of that survey so that it could drive that HSA funding, which is the funds that were used to create PPAN here. So that's that study. This study that I referenced is specific to CVSO work. And I'd be happy to provide the details of that study to the commission. Town hall members. The first town hall, we were around about 12 members of the committee. This is just an estimate. The second one in Lawndale, we were up at 24. The first one, we definitely want a lot more participation. And so as these town halls are coming to your districts, we really appreciate you guys helping us get the word out. And I'll put you in touch if you aren't haven't had contact with Reagan Wilson. He's our communication specialist. I think he sent in the room right there. Work to get you the information on the town hall to get out as well. And there was one more question.
Vet Day LA.
Vet Day LA, yeah. So we realized as a committee that Reagan was close to the date, so we decided to forego the parade. And now we're looking to have it just for the event here. The committee is looking at a party style event, music, entertainment. I know Chief Deputy Director Stone is working with Swords of Daggers people to see if 10. And I think that's it.
Thanks, Director. Next slide. So I need to add DPSS brief. Commissioner, get with Stephanie too, so she can have check from someone. Commissioner Gutierrez, would you like something from USC? We can add something.
Yes.
Also, okay, great. Is there any other topics that people want to add, like to add to this list? I know our veterans program presenter had last minute issue, and I think there's actually a new person taking. So we'll keep a lot of stuff going. Have some other answers for you, advice regarding the full advice recall. But is there any other topics?
What they have representative of ESOs talk a little bit about how do they take their meetings, what do they do, how do they do the veterans case.
That was on here. Sorry.
But I wasn't.
Commissioner, are you referencing the top PSO on the team?
Well, someone who you would find representative of BSOs to kind of give the elevator speech on, they do their work and they meet with our clientele.
We can certainly do that.
I think we could strike one.
Yes. Jim, did you have something else you want to add? Moving forward, for the good of the order, start with Mr. Inward. Anything you'd like to present?
I do not have anything.
Commissioner Gross?
But no, you know, like, exactly. Tuesday, Wednesday, the director, I apologize for missing your last dialogue. I had a contingency. And I just couldn't do it last
We'll go to, Commissioner Hall.
I just wanted to make everyone aware of the flyer in your packet for members of the public. On August 30th at Post 43, there's going to be a resource event for members of the military veteran community affected by entertainment strike, whether it's the writers or SAG. I received an email from past colleague Joe, and he wanted me to make sure that everyone's aware. So again, that's August 30th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you know anyone, any military veterans affected by what's going on in the entertainment industry, I think there's going to be quite a few organizations there, and you can check social media. I'm sure the department.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, two things. Briefly, I received notification from Stephanie Guerrero that there's an open house reference to the mural art on the metro station. I'm planning to attend to be in representation of the commission, but just as a veteran clinician. Not planning to make a scene, but I'm planning to engage with the artist in a discussion. If we can do that. The other is today is National Airport Day. All branches of the service have for the military qualified parachutists, PJs, Navy SEALs. Somebody has to go through Fort Benning School for lost children. And it's in 1940, the commencement of parachute operations. One fatality. So, and the rest fought all the way.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Nothing for me.
Vice? Okay, just for me real quick, Director, if we can get an update next time, status for the district, the other District 3 commissioner that we're waiting for. And also, whether it's a presentation or just including your report, I'm sure that while some of us have had discussions about the landmark status, if we kind of give the overall the commission just a general idea of where that's at, where the pros and cons, just so that the rest of the commissioners can have a little more background, more than deeper than some of the rest of us already have. So, anything else, commissioners? Thank you for your time. We'll hold this meeting adjourned.
Are you tired of hearing me?
You go ahead and sit right here. I mean,
You want another
in life, this meeting in life.
Yes,